Throughout history, we have seen the struggle that African Americans have faced due to the system created by the white man. The system that we are referring to is the expectation and normalization of white privilege and power. This system began very early in the 1820s and has continued on ever since. It became even more prevalent when advertisers started printing ads of what the white man stereotyped the typical black man and woman to be. These stereotypes not only incorrectly portrayed African Americans, but also, unfortunately, have been carried throughout history and still are subtly portrayed in advertising today. Some saw the Obama Fried Chicken logo as offensive and racist, but others may not understand why. By going back in the history of advertising, we can show why this portrayal of Obama can be offensive, insulting, and plays to racial stereotypes. Before the Civil War, there were people who were working to eradicate slavery, but there were also people who kept increasing the amount of images of minstrels and their exaggerated appearances in support of slavery. The minstrels held up the belief that slavery was good because slaves had a natural willingness to serve and were naturally inferior to whites. After the Civil War, blacks were portrayed as uneducated, untamed clowns who weren't able to adapt to freedom, savages. Images of freed slaves showed blacks as unkempt, dirty people whose behaviors were similar to those of wild animals. This made whites fearful of blacks and emphasized that blacks should return back to slavery to prevent their children from growing up as savages. Trade cards are commonly used to advertise products to consumers. These cards were collected by women and little girls and used for scrapbooking. But these cards did not only advertise the product they were trying to sell, they also degraded African Americans. This is a trade card for Fairy Soap. The more overtly racist depiction of a tattered, barefoot, glowering black child that is depicted in this ad visually links the concept of dark, usually black, skin color with dirt and dirtiness. This link is very apparent in this ad, but is also an underlying message in many other ads from this time period. Small enough to fit into a child's hand or a box of newly branded soap, the trade card's size, novelty, and humor would trivialize and normalize the impact of its framing visual epistemologies of race, gender, and national self-identity. The Mammy is the most well-known racial caricature of African American women. An obese, dark-skinned woman with a wide smile, the Mammy was obedient to her white owners but hostile when it came to her own family. Even though the Mammy had children of her own, she was completely desexualized, leaving no speculation that her white owner was having an affair. The Pickaninny was the racial caricature of African American children. They were poorly dressed children with unkempt hair, red lips, bulging eyes, and big mouths, which were stuffed with slices of watermelon. These children were seen on the back of postcards running away from animals. The Sambo is the racial caricature of African American men. Lazy, easily frightened, carefree, childlike, and irresponsible are all depictions of the Sambo. The Sambo was not known for working in the plantations. Instead, they were happy to serve their white masters, so the Sambo was always seen dancing and singing. My lips don't look like large pieces of liver. My eyes aren't snow white or bulging in a frightening appearance. I wear my hair natural, but it isn't standing all over my head as though I'm wearing a fright wig, the total distortion of the black image. The images of African Americans were always exaggerated, from big noses and mouths to darker skin. Not only were their images distorted, but also blacks were viewed as animalistic brutes, so foods such as watermelon and fried chicken were recognized as what blacks ate. These foods, being messy and easily eaten with hands, supported the idea that blacks were savages. After taking a look at the Obama Fried Chicken logo and knowing the history behind advertising, it is obvious how this portrayal of Obama can be offensive. The fact that Obama is extremely happy in the photo, even happier than the original Colonel Sanders, lends to the happy servant stereotype. The big nose and mouth resembles the depictions of African Americans from the 1900s advertisement. The fact that Obama is the first black president in the face of a restaurant known for chicken goes back to associating blacks with fried chicken, which in turn links blacks back to the savage lifestyle.